I had to pick the desert. Why the hell did I pick the desert? Well, I suppose pick is a rather strong word for it. I'm still not entirely certain just how I got that console working, but it suddenly started cycling through holographic images of different destinations far from the island that I'd been living on. Of course, I just had to go and press another button while it was showing off one that contained miles and miles of bloody desert. And here I am. That's just typical of me, isn't it? Always leaping, never looking. Oh well, better make the best of it. And by that, I mean better not die of heat exhaustion. My hunting skills are seriously out of practice. Not that I was ever spectacular, but I feel like I'd graduated from smashing bugs with a rock at some point. At least I was thoroughly rewarded for my efforts. My hunch was spot on. These big green bastards are carrying drinkable water on their backs, and thank goodness for that. I may have never known if I'd killed a red one first, since those carry oil instead. Far less useful when you're dying of thirst, let me tell you. I may be fighting the inevitable, though. I'm still on foot, and still alone. Oh, definitely miss Athena. I'm on a roll. By sheer coincidence, I stumbled into another group of survivors today, and they didn't try to kill me or anything. If I didn't know how probability actually worked, I'd say that this recent string of good luck is the universe making up for sending me to the bloody desert in the first place. The caravanners were welcoming, and the creatures they ride are fascinating. They seem like dinosaurs, but they also appear to share some biology with camels. Bizarre. For all its oddities, the island never had anything like that. I'll have to study them after a nap. All this desert survival's left me knackered. If I'd ended up in this place instead of on that island, I'd have never imagined the ecosystem was natural, not for 2 seconds. Take these morellatops. They're a cross between a ceratops, a morellodon, and a camel. And the strangest part? There are places in its humps where you can stick a spigot and get clean drinking water. Tastes like piss, but not only is it safe, it doesn't even harm the morellatops. Definitely the result of genetic engineering. But I knew that, didn't I? It's time to get to the why. Maybe studying the creatures here with my new perspective will yield some insight. Today I caught a glimpse of what the caravanners call the endless dunes, the desolate sea of sand that apparently surrounds the livable portion of the desert on all sides. Now those dunes can't literally be endless, but it's easy to see why one would think that. Not only do they stretch to the horizon, but they're home to, get this, giant sandworms that will devour anything that sets foot in their domain. I laughed that off at first. Then I saw a creature, the size of a train, burst up from the sand and devour a wild morellatops that had wandered into its territory. I suppose I'll just have to learn to walk without rhythm. As absurd as the deathworms are, I see their purpose. They're a natural barrier. If this whole place is a space station posing as a real ecosystem, then it needs to keep the wildlife and humans inside it contained in a way that appears natural. The island accomplished that by simply being an island. And the desert does it via the deathworms. Granted, a large population of predators with ludicrous kilocalorie needs would never last long in a place as devoid of prey. But as this is an artificial environment, the station can feed or replace the deathworms as needed. It's a little convoluted, but it makes sense. Time to go over the facts. Like the island, this desert is a space station posing as a natural environment. It is inhabited by a large population of dangerous, genetically engineered creatures and a small population of humans that are struggling to survive. This whole environment is then deliberately contained by a combination of holographic horizon and natural barriers. Assuming the other space stations are at all similar, then this whole thing is starting to look like some kind of bizarre experiment on a grand scale. Yes, Each station would represent an experimental group, and... I'll have to continue this later. One of the caravan scouts just returned in a panic. Something about rocks being alive? Which is, of course, ridic. I long for the days when I thought a Tyrannosaurus frolicking through the snow was the height of absurdity. Compared to yesterday, that seems commonplace. As the scout had so eloquently put, the rocks were indeed alive. Alive, and in the shape of a massive bipedal golem, and exceedingly angry. I was too shocked to scatter like the others when it charged. And for a moment, I was certain that I would die. Then something even more ludicrous happened. Lightning crashed into the golem. But it didn't come from the sky. It came from the mouth of a bloody dragon. I don't recall much else. Fear and instinct pretty much took over for the rest of the day. And while that helped me survive, I'm once again on my own. I remember now. The dragon had a rider. Rather, the wyvern did. 2 legs means it's a wyvern. Struth, listen to me. Fighting to survive and still finding time for semantics. The rider was covered up too well to get a good look at them. Could it have been Mei Yin? No, that's stupid. I don't know if she's even alive, much less in this desert with me. It would be just like her, though, to have tamed the meanest thing here so quickly. It's nice to pretend that a friend might be looking out for me, at least. We were sort of mates, right? Sort of. I could really use one right now. A friend, I mean. Well, I found a new best mate. The little fuzzball isn't exactly what I meant, but I'll take her. I've dubbed her species Rhinopila amplexus. They're small, cuddly little herbivores, and as far as I can tell, taming one has no practical use. I just couldn't let her starve to death, though. I guess all this rubbish with golems and wyverns has squelched what was left of my scientific instinct to leave nature to nature. At least we provide each other with a little warmth at night, and her antics have helped to keep my spirits up. I suppose I'll need to give her a name. I may have been wrong about Rhinopila not having a practical use. Earlier today, my furry new companion started bouncing around so excitedly that I couldn't calm her down, and then soon enough, it started raining. I brushed that off as a coincidence, but soon after filling my water skins and setting off once more, she started acting skittish. I decided to find shelter just in case, and within minutes, light rainfall had turned into an electrical storm. I'll need to find more evidence to draw any firm conclusions, of course, but I wouldn't mind having a fuzzy little weather radar with me. You know, it's a little on the nose, but radar's not a bad name. Thank goodness I decided to find some high ground 2 days ago, or I'd never have spotted this settlement. That's twice now that I've stumbled into my own salvation. I can't count on that happening again. I'll need to stay here for a while and prepare before setting out once more. Fortunately, the villagers are willing to let me trade work for supplies and shelter. Another stroke of luck, and another factor I can't rely on. On the island, Rockwell's name got me far, but here, I'm just another stranger. Not everyone will trust or help me. I need to be prepared to survive on my own. In some ways, surviving on my own was less work. At least then I wasn't conscripted into manual labor. Ugh, my whole body feels sore. I bet I wouldn't have to work if I were as adorable as Radar. The whole village is in love with her. I swear they spoil her like a furry little princess. Rockwell would be livid about this arrangement. I can just hear him ranting about treating scholars with propriety. I hope the old Brit is doing well. Maybe when I've broken this mystery wide open, I'll figure out a way to get him off the island, and we can discuss it all over tea like old times. While my mind still can't recall the last time I fired a gun, my muscle memory is much better. According to my would-be instructor, I wasn't a complete disaster on the firing range. I'm no pacifist, Death and violence are a part of life, that's just nature. Yet a gun still makes me a little uncomfortable. The idea of shooting at another human just seems instinctively wrong to me. I couldn't even fire at the new Legion back on the island. But I need to pull my weight. The villagers have been welcoming and patient with me. For their sakes, I need to practice. I may have to put my freshly polished marksmanship skills to the test sooner than I thought. A hunting party spotted a swarm of giant mantises heading in our direction. Yes, giant mantises. I haven't spotted them with my own eyes, but the villagers have spoken of them every now and again. They say the insects have these little hands that can actually grip and wield weapons or tools. Sounds absolutely loony, but so is the idea of a mantis swarm at all. They must share ghost mantises' distaste for cannibalism. No one seems keen on fighting them, but they're too close to outrun. Hopefully, they'll just pass us by. My hopes that the mantises would ignore the village were unfounded, and I think we were all wondering if this morning's sunrise would be our last. Despite all my practice, my rifle felt heavy and foreign in my shaking hands as the swarm advanced. Fortunately, they weren't our only visitors. The villagers erupted in cheers as lightning and fire tore through the advancing insects from above. Some chanted a name, Wali al-Aswad. The rider, still hidden behind black robes, didn't acknowledge the ovation. With swift efficiency, their small flight of wyverns decimated the mantis swarm and made for the horizon. Wali al-Aswad. I need to meet this person, if only to thank them. Just who or what Wali al-Aswad is depends on who you ask. Some of the villagers have attached a religious connotation to the figure, believing it to be some sort of heavenly guardian who appears to the worthy in their time of need. One villager is even convinced Wali is an extraterrestrial. I don't deal in beliefs. I deal in empirical evidence. And that means nothing about Wali is certain until I can meet them. I won't forget this villager's kindness, especially after granting me a morellatops and supplies for my journey. But this is why I'm here. To find answers. I'm definitely more prepared for this desert than before, and better equipped. With my morellatops offering a large, mobile supply of water, and radar looking out for the weather, the only threat I really have to worry about is major predators. Also, giant golems. I'm actually impressed with the shape I'm in, if I do say so myself. I think I even saw some ab definition the other day. Took me long enough. I've been living without sweets for ages after all. You'd think I'd get fit much quicker. Great. Now I miss sweets. The things I'd do to taste chocolate again. It took weeks of searching, but I finally caught a glimpse of Wali al-Aswad. I knew I was getting close when I found a series of fulgurite formations this morning. And sure enough, I spotted several wyverns later in the afternoon with a lone rider among them. The rider clearly saw me too, because soon enough the wyverns were circling overhead. I waved and yelled in greeting, even called out Mei Yin's name just in case. Yet with so much as a nod, the wyverns regrouped and flew off. Waleed's not a social butterfly, it seems, but I'm not letting them off the hook that easily. Of course Wali lives on a bloody mountain. Of course they do. I saw their wyverns land at the summit yesterday, and they haven't left. This has to be their home. Unfortunately. The paths were too narrow for my morellatops, so I had to leave it behind. It should know to wander off if I don't return for it. Not that I can really afford to worry about it. The climb's doing a fine job of kicking my ass even without distractions. I swear, if I don't have a six-pack after climbing a mountain in the bloody desert, I'm gonna be awfully cross. I don't know what kind of reception I expected when I reached the summit, but laughter wasn't one of them. Yet that was exactly what I heard when I finally let myself collapse and started flinging every obscenity I could think of at this damned mountain. The bemused laughter of an old woman. Wali al-Aswad is definitely no guardian angel. She was quick to dismiss those particular rumours with remarks about how the gods have abandoned this wretched place. As long as I avoided that subject, though, she's welcomed my questions with surprising warmth, though often enigmatically. I have a feeling that I'll need to be patient with her. It turns out that I didn't find Wali al-Aswad. She found me. While the portal I used to get here opened with little fanfare on my end, apparently the other side created quite the spectacle. According to Wali, it was easy for her to spot from atop her wyvern, and she started tailing me soon afterwards. I guess her timely interventions were no coincidence. She didn't seem very surprised when I told her about the obelisks, their guardians, or even that this desert is actually a space station. Either she knows more than she's saying, or experience has grinded the surprise right out of her. I really missed flying. There's no replicating the feeling, and no replacement for seeing a sunrise amongst the clouds. Wali probably started these wyvern riding sessions just to give herself an escape hatch when our conversations get too personal. But I can't say I mind. Despite their appearance, riding a wyvern is just as pleasant as riding an Argentavis, even without a saddle. By design, perhaps. No matter. Genetically engineered or not, they are magnificent creatures. It's a risky proposition, but I absolutely must observe them in the wild sometime. I can't pass up an opportunity like that. Now that Wali has deemed my wyvern riding skills acceptable, she's finally agreed to show me around the region. From what I can gather, Wali has been here for a very long time, maybe longer than Rockwell was on the island. She knows the history of every village and ruin. Apparently there was once a great city to the southeast, but it was wiped out at some point. She's still coy on a lot of the details, but I'll just have to keep prying. Radar's been helpful in that regard. Wali definitely seems to be in a better mood when the fuzzball's around. That little charmer's certainly earned her keep. I'm grateful that Wali allows me time to study the local wildlife, but I suspect she only does so out of amusement. She always says something like, "Why do you spend so much time on these scribbles that no one will read?" I never have a good retort. It's true, no one may ever read my dossiers, as I have no way to reproduce or distribute them as long as I'm trapped on one of these space stations. When I started them, they were a passion project, created out of my love for nature and its creatures. Now, I guess they're just part of my identity. Writing them helps remind me of who I am. I can't believe it. Wali spotted someone wandering in the desert the other day, and it turned out to be none other than Edmund Rockwell. I just about burst into tears when I recognized him. Apparently, he heard that Nerva was holding me captive and sought to negotiate my release. That led him to the cave, and eventually he wound up here. Awfully sweet of him to go through all that trouble for my sake. Strangely, Wali claims that she saw a portal open up far away from her territory shortly before mine did. I guess that was Rockwell's, though Wali arrived at the scene too late to track him. Rockwell theorized that the portals may have taken us through time as well as space. Considering my present company, I'm inclined to agree with him. Wali has been much quieter since we found Rockwell. I guess she's just letting us catch up. However, she did say something interesting when we were recounting Nerva's ambitions for the island. This place would never allow anyone to master it, she said. And when I asked her to explain it, she told me that the great city to the southeast was destroyed by the obelisk itself. Now, it's just conjecture, but it's interesting to think about. Could the curators of these stations be monitoring human behavior and clipping its wings should the survivors ever band together and fly too close to the sun? If each station represents a different group in a larger experiment, resetting human progress would make a lot of sense. It's a bit grim though, isn't it? Yikes. I don't think Rockwell's been sleeping much. I awoke last night to find him studying a strange piece of metal by firelight. I guess some tribe gave it to him as a gift, along with a very familiar-looking artifact. I insisted that we show those items to Wali, and she recognized them as the property of this station's lone guardian. With all that she knows, I'm not surprised that she's activated the obelisk before. Hell, it sounds like the old battle axe has even slain the beast herself. Since we have said Guardian's artifact, Wali says that we can leave this station at any time. I suppose we may as well. Rockwell's eager to depart, and as much as I like Wali, I've had my fill of sand. The transporter that can take us back to the control center station is in the ruins of another city, south of the mountains. Wali believes that it was destroyed by the obelisks, just like the city in the southeast. I didn't press her for details. Not that I'd have gotten any. Wali's more tight-lipped about those ruins than anything. I had to practically beg her to take me to the southeastern city, and while we were there, she spent most of her time just gazing out into the distance. No sense in bringing her mood down with that rubbish now. After all that she's done for me, I'd like to give her a nice, proper farewell. Having seen us through the ruins and safely to the platform, Wali has taken her leave. After doing so much for me, I was sad to see her go, but at least I got to see her smile before she left. Well, me and Radar. I can't very well take the little critter with me, so I officially gave Wali ownership of her. They'll be good for each other, I think. I wrote Wali up there, twice. I suppose old habits die hard, but it's not really her name, is it? I always knew that was the case, but she'd never told me to call her anything else. At least not until now. Well, at any rate, cheers, Raya. It was a pleasure to have known you.